revenue focused marketer where we discuss anything and everything related to marketing as well as data. This is where we kind of really love to dig into latest trends, insights, innovation, and breakthrough ideas that are shaping the industry. I'm your usual host, Hershey, and today we have a very special guest with us, Manas, who is the Director of Engineering at Labelbox. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Hershey. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Just a little bit about him. He is a senior industry leader in enterprise AI and data infrastructure. He has a lot of leadership experience spanning startups as well as large companies, and he has really been in the forefront of AI driven transformations. So, we kind of want to really dive into a hot topic here and kind of talk about how AI is driving change across industries. And maybe we'll even talk about, how it's impacting marketing. But I want to really start off by, kind of giving and opening up the floor to you to just share your journey with our listeners here today.
Sure, thanks, Hershey. So I've been in the industry for about a couple of decades now. I started my career working for an industrial software company here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So worked on things like time series historians, middleware SDKs, the data and IoT platforms for all for industrial AI use cases. Of course, no one cared about AI or industrial AI back in the day. It was broadly in the domain of data infrastructure, data analytics. Then I joined C3 AI, arguably the leading enterprise AI company in the world, while they were still a startup. Went through the journey of hitting IPOs, helping scale the company, the business. Had a really great time contributing to, as I said, the leading enterprise AI platform in the world. It was excellent experience, worked with a lot of smart people. Then sometime a little over a year ago, I joined Labelbox. So Labelbox, we're a Series D startup based out of the San Francisco Bay Area here. So what we do is we help enterprises develop task-specific custom models, and that we also work with the AI labs. And then by AI labs, I mean the LLM providers. We work with them and help them by giving them highly specialized training data specifically for the post-training phase. And you can think about, say, when I say highly specialized, you can think about training data in, say, nuclear physics or cardiology or audio engineering, perhaps atmospheric science, and so on and so forth.
Mhm. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for, sharing that with us. I think to kind of start off, I'd love to kind of, get your thoughts on how do you think, you've kind of mentioned you've been working in AI before people even thought it was cool. It wasn't a buzzword. It wasn't what everybody was talking about. So how do you think AI has kind of revolutionized over the years? And how do you kind of see industries being impacted across the board from like healthcare to finance to marketing as well as manufacturing? And like just want to get your perspective on how like it's being reshaped
Right.
today.
So I think the biggest impact, in my opinion, or the longest impact probably AI has had in the industrial world probably has been in manufacturing. So, predictive analytics has been around in manufacturing since a very long time. And like you alluded to, and like I mentioned, even before people are calling it AI. Whether it's in pharmaceutical, whether it's in oil and gas, predictive analytics has been a big deal for a very long time. Now, obviously, since the last 4 or 5 years, that has been formalized, and people now actually call it AI, in the sense that, hey, we'll use AI to be able to predict failure rates of our equipment, to be able to predict things like demand generation, and so on and so forth. Now, that's one aspect of it. Other aspects are, say, AI is also being used in supply chain optimization. It's also being used in the pharmaceutical sector for batch prediction things, and then also for manufacturing of pharmaceutical equipment as well. Uh, one of the biggest products that's out there that in my previous company C3 we built out the reliability AI product. It's basically an industry leader and it's used all over the place from oil and gas sector to manufacturing, primarily for doing predictive analytics, but it's positioned as a AI prediction tool, which is rightfully so. Other use cases I can give you, say, one I really love to talk about is a very big oil and gas company, they use AI to be able to predict rust rates of their pipelines in their massive refineries. So you'll have drones flying around this huge, humongous refinery taking pictures of their pipelines. And then there's post-processing of these pictures that happen with AI, and it helps to predict rust rates and then predict when to fix these pipelines, when something might fail before the failure actually happens, which might lead to losses of tens of millions of dollars. Other use cases are even in the defense sector. For example, a particular country is using AI to increase the operational readiness of their aircraft fleet. And aircraft fleet, not just any aircraft fleet, they're really the fifth generation aircraft fleet. So you can probably imagine what country this is and which aircraft fleet it is. Then
Right.
other use cases of AI that's really picking up more recently, is in state and local domain, where law enforcement is starting to look into it. Of course, that can be controversial sometimes. AI is also being used in property appraisal in the real estate market. Now, there have been some missteps in the real estate market with AI. I remember 3 years back or 2 years back, I think Zillow wanted to use AI to really increase their profits, really flip houses. And that was a massive failure for reasons we don't have to get into now. But more recently, AI is certainly being used for things like property appraisal in the real estate sector. In the financial, you mentioned financial sector. Financial sector, I think Swift is a big consumer of AI for fraud detection. And Swift is basically, the backbone of the financial industry. Anytime a credit card transaction happens, 90% probability, perhaps even more, that it goes through the Swift transaction engine. And then several banks are also using AI in the financial sector for personalized recommendations. Now, in the marketing world, AI is being used again for personalized recommendation, for demand generation, and then also being able to predict the outcome of certain campaigns, based on a lot of signals that's being gleaned off of social media.
Yeah. No, I think you summarized that pretty well. Like every aspect of our lives today, and each and every industry has different use cases of AI, how AI is being implemented. But it is something that is kind of touching each and every industry. Kind of talking more
Right,
about the marketing side, I know within our company also at Dig Growth, predictive lead scoring for like leads that come that kind of want to be converted and sales teams need to focus on. That's something that we've been putting a lot of our efforts into also. So I know like if we kind
right,
of went back and did it manually to now what we see in the predictiveness from AI, there's a huge
right,
difference. And I
right,
think what I'm trying to understand here still is like, there are still people that are still on the sort of fence about using AI. They could be smaller enterprises or even like, CMOs that I've kind of chatted with that are still hesitant to kind of use AI. So what advice would you have for people that are, still just dipping their feet into this sort of AI
right,
water, and
right.
how can they go about it?
So the important thing to think about is to have a very clear business use case for implementing an AI project, number one. Number two, not to get over ambitious and come up with some overarching, direction saying, okay, let's implement AI in our company, which really means nothing in my opinion. So a very clear business use case, come up with a very low complexity problem, and figure out what's the low-hanging fruit where AI can be used. Now, really, the way to think about it is three aspects. In the traditional AI machine learning world, and I should say, quote unquote, traditional, there's the aspect of predicting, of classifying, and then more recently with generative AI, there's generation. So I would recommend CMOs or executives in marketing or other places to think about which of these three categories their low complexity, low hanging fruit business use case would fall under, and then go from there. And I have seen many projects in my time in the industry where, there's some overarching driver from somebody at the top of the ladder, somebody from the executive team who might say, yeah, let's use AI, which
Mhm.
again, which is nothing. And somebody will go and come up with some really complex project, and that's just a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
Another very important point to think about is that there's no AI without data. And by data, I mean some things to think about is data infrastructure. By data infrastructure, what I mean is data ingestion. Do the data ingestion pipelines exist? What is the quality of the data? What kind of transformations may have to be done? How would these data pipelines integrate with machine learning pipelines? So there's a lot of things that need to be carefully considered, when thinking about how to go about implementing AI in a business. But if I were to give one takeaway, always think about a low complexity project to begin with.
No, that's definitely helpful. I think when you kind of mention about data being the backbone of it, I think that's such an important piece that people do end up missing out on. We like to always say within our company, garbage in is garbage out. So,
Right.
if you're not really working on unifying that data, making sure that the quality of data is good, you're not able to really get the insights that you need. We even joke if, like, if you're kind of using AI with the company and you're not able to get the right answer, it's not the GPT's fault, or, like, the AI that you're using. You're the one that's not asking the right questions. So I think it's like, a lot of work is being done into kind of reshaping this approach. But I wanted to understand from you, like, AI is evolving at a pretty rapid pace, but what do you think are some of the bigger challenges that still need to be solved for AI to reach kind of its full potential?
Well, I mean, that's a fairly open-ended question. So if I may distill a little bit, there's a lot of hype going on in the industry right now about AGI. Now, I think a lot of it is rightfully so hype. Now, AGI in my mind means sentience, true AGI. I mean, for whatever it's worth, in my opinion, it's sentience. How close are we to sentience? I don't think we are even remotely close. Right now, it's very probabilistic, which is not a bad thing. A lot of human behavior is also probabilistic, but true sentience, we are very far away from that. Now, that said, AI as it currently exists with LLMs and perhaps other architectures that's currently under research, we can still achieve a lot in terms of automation, in terms of workflow automation. We can still achieve a lot in terms of augmenting various fields of human endeavor. One thing, one field which obviously is very closely related to my domain of work is in software engineering. And we are seeing a lot of development in LLMs, which is actually enabling software engineers to do a lot more in less time by using various AI tools. And similar developments can also be availed of in other domains, even in marketing, for example, whether it's for demand generation, for lead prediction, whether it's for AI augmented CRM software. So a lot of the things are happening, but in order to really leverage it, people need to understand how to use it, how to use prompts. People also need to be able to sift, the right tools from the hype out there.
Definitely. I think another aspect that is kind of like, in hype right now is kind of agentic AI and sort of the
Yeah,
growing area of discussion. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this. Where can
yeah.
AI act more independently with minimal human intervention? And what do you maybe see as the risks and, the opportunities of having more work done in that space?
Right. Well, for risk is a very important word there. For risk elimination, any AI endeavor, ideally it should be idempotent, and idempotency should not result in any sort of risk or any bad outcome for human society. So now, as you mentioned agentic AI, agentic AI, the way I think about it is, a small agent, quote unquote agent. That's when I say agent, I mean a small step in a particular workflow that's being automated using either a machine learning model, a smaller machine learning model, or a large LLM. So in a way, it's not too unlike how we would think about microservices back in the day, where each microservice is supposed to do one task and one task very well. So each AI agent, now the way I think about it, is supposed to do one small task and should do that one small task very well. So I think workflow automation is a big domain for agentic AI, where you can have one agent do one task in a particular large workflow, and it does that really well with high reliability. And then you have a bunch of these agents doing a bunch of complex workflows. So that is definitely a big domain where we can use agentic AI. In the industrial world, obviously, it can be a huge application, but again, in the industrial world, the margin of error is very low. We are talking about like maybe if there is even one nanometer uh, difference in tolerance for a particular component that is manufactured, that can have catastrophic outcomes. So we are a little bit away from implementation of agentic AI in the industrial world, but definitely for things like uh, relevant to your listeners, perhaps marketing campaign automations, defining as a workflow, agentic AI certainly has a lot of applications.
Definitely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think in the near future, we can definitely see more automations being done in that space. This is one of the fun questions to ask, I guess, that I like to kind of learn, from my guest speakers. But I just wanted to understand your thoughts on, is AI, here to stay, and is it taking away jobs? Like, are humans going to be losing jobs, or is that something that can coexist, and like jobs are still good? I just want to get your
Yeah.
thoughts on that aspect.
Well, AI will certainly have a definitive impact on the world economy. Is it going to lead to elimination of jobs in certain domains? Yes, but more so, the way I think about it, it will lead to job displacement, not job elimination necessarily. And the workforce of the world will have to be retrained, will have to be reskilled to be able to learn how they can use AI to become more productive in their jobs. So in any domain, people who are able to use AI to drive their productivity, they will actually do better. So I don't think people should be afraid about job elimination. And some of it will happen for sure, but mostly it's going to be job displacement. And the changing nature of work, where a lot of automation will happen because of AI. And then individuals, human beings who are working in a various domains right now, they'll have to work with AI to be more productive in their jobs.
That makes sense. I think another recent, or I guess it's been a bit for this, but DeepSeek AI, has been seeking a lot of traction, especially on LinkedIn. A lot of discussions, debates over, like, is it just a copy of OpenAI, or is it, like, something that is at a cheaper cost and it's gonna make an impact? So, have you, had any thoughts about it? Have you explored the tool at all? And, how do you see it comparing to other popular AI models in the space? And, yeah, just thoughts on that.
Yeah, certainly. So DeepSeek definitely, there's kind of ruffled the feathers in certain companies for sure, in a lot of American AI companies, so to speak. Now, I think DeepSeek did implement some innovations, key innovations in their post-training phase. Now, there was a lot of hype about, hey, they just did it in 6 million. That's not true at all. Even in their paper, they very categorically mentioned that 6 million was mostly in the post-training phase. So they did a lot of optimizations and innovations, and really kudos to them. But what I call the baseline training phase, that definitely took a lot more, significantly more than 6 million. Now, they were able to do optimizations because of these innovations, and I'm sure some of the optimizations happened because of the low cost of label data in China compared to the West. Furthermore, there was model distillation, undoubtedly, which is why in a lot of Chinese models, and perhaps even including DeepSeek, sometimes they would misidentify as some other model. So model distillation happened, and which is also why a lot of the American companies, AI companies, they have started to, and they have already blocked their training traces from becoming public. So because of all these reasons, sometimes these models would misidentify, the Chinese models would misidentify as some other model because of model distillation. But I think undeniably, DeepSeek did implement some innovations in the way they went about in the post-training phase. And I don't remember the exact detail, but what I do remember is they implemented something which is where in an iterative training process, you would use the learning from the previous step. Kind of you think about it as a machine learning technique or transfer learning. It's not transfer learning, but conceptually it's similar.
That makes sense. Ready. I think for a lot of people, while using, DeepSeek, another concern kind of comes back to the ethics, and also how the data is being used, and how much, is being shared, even with governments being involved. So what are your thoughts on sort of the ethical considerations that come with AI? Because
Right.
these are two things that kind of have to go hand in hand, but I'm not sure how much work is already being done to kind of improve
Right.
that.
So, I mean, going back to DeepSeek, the good thing is that now a high quality reasoning model is available for free to anyone. Now, and of course, since it's open source, it can be hosted anywhere. So, and it's already happened. The American AI infrastructure companies have already hosted DeepSeek, and they're offering it as their part of their model serving platform. So doesn't mean because it's a Chinese model, it's only hosted in China. Yes, it is hosted in China, but it's also hosted in other places. So that's good. Now, going back to ethical concerns, I think what's important is that when training models, there needs to be some sort of guardrails around privacy, perhaps using anonymization of personally identifiable information, perhaps using differential privacy techniques. Then there also needs to be some policy things, in my opinion. Like for example, in social media world, a lot of companies they are not necessarily accountable for what's out there. They present themselves as, hey, we are merely the medium. So I think we need to think long and hard about how that accountability factor is going to play out in the AI world. Then I think there also needs to be something along the lines of right to be forgotten, which has been implemented for search engines. Similarly, consumers need to be protected with the right to be forgotten from inferences of LLMs as well as from training data. So these things haven't happened yet, but there are some conversations happening at the industry level, at the policy level with lawmakers. So I'm hopeful that in the foreseeable future, some, if not all of these things will definitely see the light of the day.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that needs to be looked upon, especially now that it has become the hype. It is something that is being touched by each and every industry. Some form of regulation is definitely required in this area, and policies can be one of the measures of kind of going about these for sure. I know we're kind of coming to the end of our session here today, but I did want to ask you one last question that kind of focuses on the future that is to come now. So, looking ahead, what trends in AI do you believe will define the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, right now there is a trend, there is a move in the industry to get LLMs to say PhD or professor level expertise in various domains. So I think what's going to happen is probably within the next 1 2 years, we'll have a lot of LLMs get to professor level expertise in various domains like say computer science or nuclear physics, astrophysics, and a lot of these fields. So what that means is, does that mean we will not need universities doing research? Not at all. That will absolutely still exist. But LLMs are gaining more and more high quality training data, and that's reflecting in the quality of the responses. That's reflecting in how expert they are getting in these fields. I think the monetization of this is yet to be figured out. I just saw a news item yesterday that OpenAI is apparently planning to monetize a professor level AI agent, at $20,000 per month. Now, we'll have to see how successful that is, because
Yeah.
as we all know, grad students, PhD students are probably very underfunded. So it remains to be seen how, if somebody would be willing to pay that kind of money.
Definitely.
So in the next 1 2 years, definitely this trend in the industry of LLMs getting to a professor level expertise in these domains, it'll not only continue, it'll actually come to fruition, in my opinion. And then there's other things happening in terms of other architectures. It hasn't gained traction yet, but in one of the most reputable machine learning conferences last year, towards the end of last year at New Rips, definitely there was some discussion about other architectures beyond LLM. So that trend will also continue. And then I think perhaps we'll see some more innovations in terms of how optimizations can be done in the post-training phase. Similarly, to what DeepSeek did in terms of how to not spend too much money on GPUs. And then one other thing I would like to see personally, and I don't know what's going on there, not much actually, where optimizing training of LLMs, particularly in the baseline training phase, which is where we incur most amount of money, such that we don't have to, somebody doesn't have to spend like hundreds of millions to be able to spin off a high quality LLM. Like for example, for Grok 3, I heard that Elon Musk had to spend probably around $20 billion spinning up data centers, buying GPUs and whatnot. So right now, it's unfortunate that in order to really create a high quality LLM, you need only people with deep pockets. So I'm hoping there's some innovation there in terms of chip design, in terms of the baseline training phase, where there's more accessibility and to the players who can actually create these LLMs instead of just a few big players with big pockets.
Yeah, well, that definitely makes sense. Wow, this has been such an incredibly insightful discussion. And it's clear that, AI is really changing the way we work, the way we think, the way we innovate, and it's touching each and every industry that we kind of talked about in this session. So before we wrap up today, for people that kind of, want to learn more from you, more about you and your company, how can they kind of reach out to you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn, or I have a website. It's my first name, last name, .github.io. That's, as I like to put it, that's the entry point. That's linked up to all my other social media profiles on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on X, that is. So my website is the best place to start reaching out to me, or I'm also open to connections on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again for joining us today. And for those listening, if you'd like to, stay updated on AI's latest advancements and also learn about what's happening in the sort of marketing industry, be sure to, connect with us, stay in touch. Do share, your thoughts on this episode. And as always, like, if you did enjoy this episode, do see us at our next one. Thank you so much and have a great one ahead. Thank you again, Manas, for joining us.